Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive. We're really tackling a big one today, Unshakeable, Your Financial Freedom Playbook by Tony Robbins.
Oh yeah, Tony Robbins, a motivational powerhouse for sure. But he's also, spent decades talking to like the biggest financial gurus out there.
Exactly.
So we're getting some really high-level advice distilled in this book.
It's like peeking behind the curtain, right? Like, what do these financial titans know that we don't?
Right.
And I'll be honest, there's some pretty eye-opening stuff in here. Practical tips on navigating the market, understanding all those hidden fees that chip away at your returns, even how to cultivate that unshakable mindset when it comes to money.
It's about replacing fear of the unknown with actual knowledge, right?
100%. So are you ready to dive into Unshakeable and uncover these secrets to unshakability?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, so Robbins kicks things off by tackling something that trips up a lot of us, fear, particularly when it comes to investing. He uses this analogy of planting a garden, trying to invest when the market is down is like trying to plant crops in winter.
It's not going to work. Timing is everything, and you're kind of setting yourself up for failure there.
Totally. You're fighting against the natural cycle. And Robbins argues that just like with seasons, the market has its cycles too.
Absolutely.
We have those periods of growth bull markets, everyone's happy, and then those periods of decline, the dreaded bear market.
Right.
And get this, he says, these cycles are actually surprisingly predictable.
Yeah. Since 1900, the market has seen a correction. So that's a drop of at least 10% basically once a year.
Wow, once a year.
Yeah. And that might sound like a lot, but here's the thing. Most of these corrections are super short-lived.
Okay, so it's more like a dip in the road than a full-blown financial apocalypse.
Exactly. Robbins points out that in most cases, the market recovers and continues on that upward climb. And trying to time those dips perfectly, you're almost always going to get it wrong. And think about it this way. The time you spend in the market is usually going to be more beneficial than trying to perfectly time it.
That's like that old saying, the biggest risk is not taking any risk at all.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And speaking of risks, let's talk about another silent wealth killer. Fees.
Oh, yeah.
Hidden fees. Robbins does not hold back in this book about just how widespread these are in the financial industry.
This is where it gets frustrating.
Oh, yeah.
He drops this bomb. 96% of mutual funds fail to beat the market over a 15-year period.
Think about that for a second.
That's most of them.
Yeah. Your odds of picking a winning mutual fund are incredibly slim.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder who these mutual funds are actually working for, doesn't it?
Yeah. It reveals a lot about the priorities. A lot of these places, they're more focused on making themselves rich than they are on growing your wealth.
And they do that through this tangled web of fees.
Right.
So Robbins breaks down the different types of funds you might see: hedge funds, mutual funds, index funds, and how those fees are structured can make or break your investment strategy.
It's huge. He really hits hard on the impact those fees have on what you're actually going to see in returns, long term. You might think, oh, it's just a small percentage. But compounded over time, that small percentage can eat up a significant portion of your savings.
So what's the solution? How do we avoid getting nickel and dime to death by these hidden fees?
Well, Robbins is a huge proponent of index funds. He champions them for being low cost and tax efficient, which basically lets you capture more of the market's growth potential. You get to keep more of what you earn.
Makes sense to me. But I gotta admit, sometimes this world of investing feels like a minefield. There's so much jargon, so many choices. It's easy to feel overwhelmed.
You're telling me. And honestly, that's why Robbins brings up another financial trap that he says a lot of people fall into. The 401k trap.
The 401k trap.
Yeah, you might think you're doing the right thing by contributing to your 401k, but he pulls back the curtain on some of the less savory aspects of these plans.
He even gets personal in the book, right?
Oh yeah, he talks about his own experience with a 401k that was just riddled with hidden fees.
Really?
Yeah, it really highlights how easy it is to be taken advantage of. And he doesn't hold back. He lists out big-time institutions. He calls it his wall of shame, all of them exploiting clients, racking up hefty fines. It's kind of alarming.
It's a good reminder to never blindly trust an institution with your money. So if we can't necessarily trust these institutions, who can we trust?
That is the million-dollar question. And that, my friend, is precisely what we'll dive into after a quick break.
So finding a true fiduciary, Sounds simple enough, but how do we actually go about doing that?
Well, Robbins lays out these 5 criteria you should really be looking for when you're choosing an advisor. It's a good checklist to make sure you're getting the best advice possible.
Okay, so what are we looking for?
First and foremost, credentials. You want to make sure this person actually has the qualifications, the experience to guide you towards your specific goals.
Mm.
You wouldn't hire like a plumber to do your electrical work, right?
Right.
Same thing here. Ask about their track record. How have they handled different market conditions in the past?
Yeah, experience matters, but it's also got to be someone you trust, right? Someone you actually connect with who understands your needs.
Exactly. That's his second criterion. Rapport. This is someone you're trusting with your financial future. You got to feel comfortable communicating openly and honestly with them. Investing's a long game. You want someone who's going to be a partner every step of the way.
It's like any relationship. Communication is key, especially when we're talking about your hard-earned money. Okay, so we've got credentials, rapport. What else?
This one might seem obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people don't actually do it.
Right.
Make sure they are being totally transparent about their fees.
Oh, yeah.
No hidden charges, none of that confusing jargon, just straightforward, easy to understand explanations.
Oh my gosh, those fee schedules. It's like they're intentionally trying to make your eyes glaze over.
Right. Transparency is key.
Yes.
And then Robin says to make sure they're using what's called a third-party custodian to hold your funds.
Okay. What's that?
So that adds this extra layer of security, right? It makes sure that your money is actually kept separate from the advisor's own accounts.
Okay.
It's basically like having a neutral third party overseeing everything.
I like it. So checks and balances.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got credentials, rapport, transparency, third-party custodians. What's the final thing?
So this one's big for Robbins. He stresses how important it is that your advisor has a commitment to ongoing education.
Okay.
Because the financial landscape changes constantly, right? You want someone who's staying ahead of the curve, who's always learning, adapting their strategies to benefit their clients.
It's like anything else.
Yes.
You want someone who's passionate, who's a lifelong learner. Finding the right advisor, though, that's only half the battle, isn't it? Even with the best guidance, sometimes we can really trip ourselves up. Our emotions, they can sabotage even the most well-thought-out plan.
Oh, 100%. Our brains are wired to sometimes work against us,
Mm-hmm.
Robbins dives into some of the common mental biases that can really trip up investors, like confirmation bias.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to only look for information that supports what we already believe.
Oh, tell me about it. Like when you see someone who is so fixated on this one stock, even when all the signs are pointing to like trouble.
Exactly. It's like they're wearing blinders. They just block out anything that contradicts what they want to believe.
Right.
And then there's overconfidence, right? Thinking we're somehow better at this than we actually are.
Yeah, we all think we're above average investors.
Right. But that kind of thinking, that can be really costly. And then, of course, there's loss aversion.
Loss aversion, yeah.
That's that pain of losing money. It always feels so much worse than the pleasure of making it.
Oh, it's so true. Like when you see your portfolio dipping, you just kind of want to hold on for dear life, hoping it's going to magically rebound.
You're just clinging on. And Robbins says a lot of this just boils down to our emotions hijacking our decision making. He says these biases, they're part of being human, right?
Right.
But we don't have to let them control us. We can learn to recognize them.
So how do we do that? How do we break free?
Well, Robbins offers some practical advice to combat that confirmation bias.
Mm-hmm.
He says, actively seek out different opinions. Surround yourself with people who are going to challenge you.
Get out of that echo chamber.
Yes. To fight that overconfidence, he recommends diversification. Spread those investments around. Acknowledge that, you know what, you don't have a crystal ball. You don't know what's going to happen.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket. It's classic advice for a reason.
Right. And then to deal with that loss aversion, he says to really focus on what he calls the do not lose principle. So it's about shifting your mindset from always chasing returns to really prioritizing minimizing your risk.
So kind of like playing defense first.
Exactly.
Make sure you don't lose big before you even think about winning big.
Exactly. And you know what? This isn't just some theory that Robbins came up with. He points out that this do not lose principle, this is something that is embraced by some of the most successful investors of all time. We're talking Ray Dalio, Warren Buffett.
Well, if it's good enough for Warren Buffett.
Exactly.
But here's the thing about Unshakeable that I really appreciate. It goes beyond just the practical. it really touches on this idea of true wealth and that it's about more than just money, right?
Yeah.
Robbins argues that just because you're financially rich doesn't mean you're living a truly fulfilled life.
Yeah. He actually uses this really sad story about Robin Williams to illustrate his point. Here's a man who seemingly had it all, right?
Right.
Fame, fortune, he could make millions of people laugh, but he was really struggling. Addiction, depression, this deep sense of emptiness. And it's just this tragic reminder that money in and of itself can't buy happiness.
No, it can't buy happiness.
Oh.
And I think true wealth, it's so much more than that. It's your relationships, your health, your purpose, your ability to experience joy.
It's about aligning your money with your values, right?
Yes.
Creating a life that's actually meaningful to you.
Because so often we get caught up thinking that, oh, if I just had more money, then I would be happy. But money is just a tool.
Exactly.
So how do we cultivate that sense of fulfillment? How do we find that, unshakable inner wealth, no matter what's happening in our bank accounts?
Well, that is a great question. And Robbins, he offers this really powerful antidote.
It's about more than money, right? It's about that true wealth. How do we cultivate that? How do we find that unshakable inner peace, regardless of what our bank account looks like?
And Robbins, he has a really interesting take on this. He says it all starts with understanding suffering.
Suffering. Okay, that sounds a little heavy for a financial book.
It does, but he makes this point that so many of our financial decisions, especially when they're driven by fear or scarcity, they're coming from this deeper place of unease.
Okay, I can see that. So how does he define suffering? What are the root causes?
Well, he breaks it down into what he calls the 3 triggers of suffering.
Okay, the 3 triggers.
Loss, less, and never.
Loss, less, and never. All right, let's break those down. Let's start with loss. I feel like that one's pretty self-explanatory. Is that fear of losing what we have, maybe dwelling on what we've already lost, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a job, our health, even a sense of security.
Exactly. And it can really influence how we approach our finances. Think about if you're terrified of losing money, you might not take the risks necessary to actually grow your wealth, right?
You're playing it too safe.
Exactly.
Okay. What about less?
Less is that feeling of not being enough, not having enough. We're constantly comparing ourselves to others. Is that keeping up with the Joneses thing?
Oh, yeah.
You're chasing after the next big thing, but you're never satisfied. Always feeling like you're falling short.
And that can lead to some risky financial decisions, I imagine.
Absolutely. Trying to fill that void with material possessions.
Right. Okay, and the last one, never.
Never is about those limiting beliefs that we all carry around, the ones that tell us we'll never achieve our dreams, that we'll never be truly happy, or in this case, never achieve financial security.
It's that voice in the back of your head that's like, don't even bother trying.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that Robbins points out these 3 triggers, they're often rooted in this survival mindset.
Survival mindset.
It's like that primal part of our brain that's always looking out for danger.
Yeah.
Even when we're not really in any danger.
Wow, that's fascinating. So how do we break free from that? How do we escape that fear-based scarcity mindset?
Well, Robbins, he has this really, really simple yet powerful antidote. Are you ready for it?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Gratitude. It sounds so simple, but consciously focusing on what we're grateful for can completely change our perspective.
It's about shifting from what we lack to what we already have, right?
Yes. Instead of focusing on what's missing, you start appreciating the abundance that's already present in your life.
And he actually gives us a tool for this, right?
He does. It's called the 2-minute gratitude meditation.
Okay, a 2-minute practice. Even I have time for that.
Exactly. And it's so easy. Take just 2 minutes, that's all it is, and bring to mind 3 things that you're grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
And really feel that gratitude.
Okay.
It could be your health, it could be your loved ones, a sunny day outside, anything.
It sounds almost too easy, but I get it. Doing that consistently, it's got to shift your perspective, make you see things through a more abundant lens.
Exactly. And the cool thing is there's a ton of research behind this. Countless studies show that practicing gratitude can seriously boost your happiness, your health, even your relationships.
Wow. It's like that saying, what you focus on expands. So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive market cycles, those pesky hidden fees, finding the right advisor, even mastering our own psychology. But I think the real core message here, the heart of Unshakeable, it's about aligning your money with your values. It's about creating a life of purpose and fulfillment that goes way beyond just your net worth, right?
100%. And, I think Robbins really leaves us with this powerful challenge. He asks us, what would it take for you to feel truly unshakable? And he doesn't just mean financially, he means in all areas of your life.
It's a big question.
It is.
It makes you really stop and think, right?
It's about taking ownership. It's about deciding what's truly important, what a meaningful, joyful life looks like for you, and then going out there and creating that.
And that's what it's all about, right?
Ex-
So for anyone listening who's ready to take that next step, Robbins, he's got you covered. There's the book itself, of course, Unshakeable. It's packed with even more actionable advice. He's also got a mobile app that can help you stay on top of your goals. And for those quick bursts of inspiration, he's got a podcast too. Interviews with other thought leaders, insights on everything from, investing to personal growth.
A wealth of knowledge.
Truly. And I think that's a good reminder. We all have the power to create a more abundant, a more fulfilling life, and it starts right now.
Absolutely.
Well, listeners, we hope this deep dive has given you the knowledge, the inspiration to really take control of your financial future. Remember, it's not just about the numbers, it's about your mindset, your values, your vision for a life well lived. So go out there, be bold, be smart, and become truly unshakable.